What's up, YouTube? Back at you with another video. I'm fresh out the movie theater after seeing Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness. This wasn't an essay I anticipated writing, but given that my last two Marvel-related essays were about the two prominent characters in the film, it's only right that I do so. I'm sure most MCU fans can share the same sentiment, and in this rare case, I'll speak on their behalf as well as mine. When we watch these sorts of movies, we watch them for the action, humor, the flash, glitz and glam. We like the heroes because they spark our imagination with their superhuman abilities, cool costumes, and catchy phrases. But for some of us, it's actually their flaws, shortcomings, and their capacity to make mistakes like the rest of us. It's not their otherworldly powers that gets us in the seats every time, but the human qualities that we identify with that allows us to escape into their personal journeys. We spectate the adversity they face, find that we share their struggles, and those struggles ultimately shed light and provide some comfort and answers to what trials and tribulations we face each day in our lives. The highly anticipated sequel to Doctor Strange was no exception to the aforementioned and did not disappoint. For those watching, you should also check out my video essays on WandaVision and episode 4 of Marvel's What If. Without further ado, let's get into it. Coming into the theater after having seen WandaVision and Spider-Man No Way Home, I had expected Doctor Strange and Wanda to team up against whatever new villain that decided to reveal itself. I hadn't the slightest clue that it would be Wanda herself that would become the main antagonist. I figured Wanda had come to terms with what took place previously, and that she had reached some sort of inner resolution. I was wrong, which then immediately turned me all the way off to her character. In my mind, she had what I like to call a 360 moment. People are who they are. Do people have the capacity to improve? Absolutely. But the ability to completely reroute, overhaul, and change the fundamentals that make us who we are? No. I think sometimes, due to external pressures and circumstances, one can feign change and present a facade. But ultimately, that moment will come in and you'll find yourself being exactly who you are. Whether that's a good thing or bad thing is neither here nor there, in a different conversation entirely. Just like when her character was first introduced in Age of Ultron, because of her actions, I passed judgment on her immediately. Didn't give it a second thought. I found myself canceling her in my mind and putting her back on my shit list. I always viewed Wanda as a selfish person. Anyone within her grasp always has to suffer because she's suffering. If she's miserable, everyone has to be miserable. If she can't have it, no one else can. To the naked eye, it looks intentional, and for the most part, it is. If there are superficial characters in the MCU, Wanda is not one of those characters. There are layers to her words and actions, and I found myself putting myself in her shoes. It wasn't until the end of WandaVision where I ditched my hate for her character and took the time to understand her motives and feelings. I was able to do it then, and I was able to do it quicker this time. There is no instruction manual for grieving the losses we face in life. We all deal with it in the ways we know how. Some of us deal with it constructively and others destructively. But do we as humans really mean to ransack our surroundings? No. In this case, I'll play devil's advocate because I've been that destructive guy, operating at the mercy of my emotions. It never mattered how I expressed pain, hurt, and anger. It never mattered who or what was damaged in the process. It was all justified because I was hurting. If others had to take the brunt of it, so be it. Now obviously you learn and grow to know that there are better ways to deal with things. And I thought Wanda had come to that. Involving an entire town in her grieving process wasn't enough. She still had a long way to go. I have to make another correlation between Wanda and myself. Moving on and letting go are two completely different things, and I feel that most people get the two mixed up. Moving on is nowhere near as difficult as letting go. We move on from things all the time. But how often do we let go of what was so close to our hearts? We move away from it, but we're still tethered subconsciously, whether we admit it or not. I struggled to let go of something that I thought was important. I found myself being destructive and lashing out, and I didn't understand why. When we lose friendships and relationships, there's always a void that they leave behind. Sometimes we feel vulnerable, naked, or less of who we are without them. It can sting, it can ache, and keep you up at night. Wanda was in so much pain that the only way she knew how to deal with it was to take back what she lost by force, even if she was taking it back from herself. Once you're exposed to what you believe to be true love, your mind can't shrink back down. There's no other love that can match the bond that's shared between a mother and her children, and there's no obstacle that can stand between them. America knew that she couldn't beat Wanda head to head, and that she had to give Wanda what she wanted. Having destroyed everything in her path thus far, the very objects of her affection and her reasoning for such acts were afraid that they would be next, thus realizing what she had become and ultimately having to face herself at the end of it all. The quote that rang a bell in my mind, and the impetus for me writing this is, "It is better to have loved and lost than to never have loved at all."
And I take it she never got those flowers. So what, she ever get married or anything? No. Well, you know what they say, it's better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all. Try it.
Knowing that she had experienced true love at some point, and although it's no longer there in front of her anymore, it's still there, and that's okay. But in the end, Wanda was just a prisoner of her own pain. Doctor Strange himself is no stranger to loss of love, but unlike the Doctor Strange in Marvel's What If, his loss didn't disappear. It invited him to her wedding. All superheroes face the same challenge: keep the love of your life and put her in harm's way, or sacrifice that relationship and spare her the constant uncertainty and fear of what could happen next. It's almost as if the dynamic between Steven and Christine was more complex than any predicament that our hero finds himself in. A complexity that transcended the multiverse, where, for whatever reason, they couldn't really figure out how they could be together. Whether it's aspects of Steven that she respected and couldn't accept, or his reluctance to say how he really felt. Doctor Strange succumbed to his responsibilities and opted to suffer in silence, feigning happiness. It's one of those human things, those situations you read and watch where a person can have the world at their fingertips and still feel as if there's something missing. Sometimes having endless power in the world at your fingertips just doesn't compensate for losing what power can't grasp or create. I think that's why his first response to what Wanda was doing was to be understanding and offer another way. Even the Doctor Strange in another universe was willing to trade power for love. Another chance to re-experience and recapture a lost love is sometimes worth treading the universe. If you made it to the end of this video, I hope you enjoyed it. As always, let me know your thoughts. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.